everyone, welcome to another Ultimate Fighter episode review. This is for Season 29, Episode 10, titled Eye on the Prize, and it's the first middleweight semi-final fight between Bryan Battle of Team Volkanovski and Petroski of Team Ortega. So, yeah, basically I'm going to try and break down the whole episode bit by bit, and we're just going to get into it, so let's go. So it turns out that the prediction from my last Ultimate Fighter episode was only half right, as this wasn't the coach's challenge, this was actually the fighters doing the thing. It was that thing I said about like changing tyres on a car. Yeah, it was a sponsorship thing from Toyo Tires, which is the main, is the tyre of the UFC as we know. And Forrest Griffin is a big advocate for that company, as well as being the original Ultimate Fight winner, as well as a former UFC light heavyweight champion. Also, it was just really nice to see Forrest Griffin on TV, and he was, as always, a great host. And he was there with a championship 14 time, might be a bit more than that, world championship driver person man named. It began with a V, I think. Was it Tavo? I think it was Tavo. Anyway, yeah, Tavo begins with a V. Now, so basically the fighters had to change a tyre, and, Team Ortega picked three from their side. I don't remember which ones they were, and Team Volkanovski had to pick three from their side. I don't remember which ones they were, but I know one of them was Brady Heaston, who used to work in an auto shop, so he knew a thing or two about changing a tyre, and because of that, Volkanovski got the tyre changed, not only done quicker, but done a lot better than Team Ortega's side did it. And I remember actually the fighters for this episode being on those respective teams. So it was Bryan Battle on Team Volkanovski for the tyre change, and Andre on Team Ortega for the tyre change as well. But yeah, Volkanovski ran away with it, essentially. And then after that, they got to have themselves a really nice looking sushi dinner. Now, I'm not a big sushi guy, I've tried it once, I'm not a huge fan, but damn, the way these professional cooks were at the house and making it up, it looks really good. I would have dove into it myself if I were there. But yeah, it was a really nice moment, and again, really cool to see the fighters just having a fun time, not doing training and shit. So, and again, always nice to see Forrest Griffin. Next up, I'm going to talk about the fighters themselves one by one and sort of talk about what they were going through in this episode. So let's give that a go, and starting with Bryan Battle. Now, Bryan was at the Ultimate Fighter house asking fellow members of Team Volkanovski, I don't know why I looked at my phone, and he was asking other members of Team Volkanovski what gender they think his upcoming child will be, because, he's got a wife back home and they're expecting a kid, and that kid is probably going to be super adorable, I don't know. And he himself wants a girl, his wife wants a boy, and then he asks about four of the other fighters on his team what they think it'll be. Two say girl, two say boy, so it's like an even split. And as we would find out a bit later, turns out that the signs are pointing to them having a boy. Bryan, I should point out, before the actual, on the day before the fight, they actually got to call with their family and friends back home again. Both Bryan and Andre did. So I'm really glad this is a thing that the season is still doing. And I hope it carries on through the rest of the semi-finals, even though there's only two of those left. But it was really cool to see Andre... Bryan, we're focusing on him. It was really cool to see Bryan, say hi to his family again, say hi to his wife. And there's a backstage moment, actually, or that sort of interview room moment. Interview room, I should just say. But there's a moment where he's explaining about what happened, and he says that he used to hate reality shows because people cry on them. It's just 30 days, and there he was crying his eyes out because of how much he misses his wife and can't wait to get back to her. So it was a genuinely sweet moment from Bryan Battle, who was just such a nice seeming dude, and it was really, really cool to see him sort of behave that way, and he was just really happy to see his wife again. And you can tell how excited he is that he's going to be having a baba. Next we focus on Andre, and Andre is actually having a chess match with bantamweight, Team Ortega bantamweight Josh Rettinghouse, and he beats him about 6 times at chess, which I was not expecting, but hell, Andre is full of surprises. And yeah, it was really, really cool. I should actually go through the training sessions. Bryan Battle was very much focused on the takedowns and the defense and stuff, and Andre was mostly focused on his striking and also his wrestling a little bit. There you go. So, yeah, but Andre beat Josh about 6 times in chess, and then he got to have a call back home with his girlfriend and their daughter, as well as his roommate, Cameron. And seriously, I'm not kidding, Andre's daughter reminds me of my niece so gosh damn much. There was such an adorable moment where, because you have to remember they're on a Zoom call, there was such an adorable moment where Riley, his daughter, reaches to the camera to try and get Andre to pick her up, and she realised he couldn't, and she got so upset, and I was just like, bless her soul, that is so innocent and sweet. Oh man, it's just the kind of stuff that makes you smile and makes you happy about the show sometimes, and it does remind you that these people are human. So, yeah, again, really love that they kept the Zoom calls thing, and really glad that Andre got to talk to his other half. Really glad that Bryan got to talk to his other half, and I'm trying to think of if there's anything more. Oh, there is. I remember now. So much like Team Volkanovski sort of had a good moment earlier when their team won that tire switch thing and they got to have a really nice sushi dinner, Bryan Ortega and some of his coaches actually went to the TUF house to try and like cheer the other guys up, and they were just like chilling with them, had a few beers I think, they play poker with them, they play some pool, just trying to remind them, because by this point they've lost 5 fights in a row now, and it was really cool that Bryan was just like, you know, we just need to chill, relax a little bit, not try and like get to us too much. We are 5 down, but we won the first 4, and it was really nice of him to just like be really personable with his fighters and try to cheer them up as best as he could. So really good to see that. And then we get to the weigh-in, both fighters make the weight, and then we should just really move on to the fight. So the fight, yeah, there's really not a lot else to say. So the fight actually starts quite well for Andre. He opens up with a good couple of strikes, and despite the fact that he's shorter, and there's a thing that they worked over in his training, by the way, the fact that he's shorter and able to like get around the reach of a bigger guy with longer reach like Bryan, he actually takes advantage of that a couple of times with his striking. Goes to the body quite well, and he gets a takedown fairly early. Bryan manages to get back up, and they do sort of enter a strange sort of clinch position where their heads do accidentally clash, and then like Andre sort of sat low trying to get another takedown, but then he eats a knee, and it sort of opens a cut right here where the eye socket sort of meets the nose, like right in the corner of the eye, right on the right eye too. And then we had a break from the fight because Andre complained about it being a headbutt that opened the cut. It wasn't. The headbutt was clearly accidental, and the knee was what opened the cut. And then, you know, it sort of became a mixture of, oh, did they stop it because of the headbutt, or did they stop it because of Andre's cut and how close that was to the eye? And he still got to fight, by the way, which is really, really, you know, it's good, because you never like to see a fight end by that. But it was weird that he was complaining about it, because you could clearly see that it was just a knee. And Bryan was calling him out on it. Even I sort of agreed with Bryan, like it was bullshit that Andre was sort of acting that way. It was a knee, dude. You're supposed to get hit by them. Well, I mean, you're not supposed to, but it's part of the job. You know, and when they open a cut when you're in a position like that and it's clearly not a headbutt, you know, I'm not a big anatomy master, but this is the knee. This is the head. Right? I know that. I have a body, after all. You know, I'm more than just this floating torso with arms. Anyway, yeah, it was weird that Andre complained about that, but when they got back to the fight, he opened up really good strikes. I go off on weird tangents when I don't script videos, and he gets into the takedown and sort of takes the back of Bryan and keeps control of him for a lot of this first round. And he does get the body hooks in. He goes for a good couple of rear naked choke attempts, but Bryan really fights off the hands quite well. And there is a point where he actually sort of manages to wall walk and sort of backflip around it, so he's sort of on top of Andre, but Andre switches around and takes the back again, tries to sink in the choke, settles for like getting a good like mounted position and lands some good ground strikes before the round, and round 1 easily in favour of Andre, just based on the wrestling alone. Like his striking was actually surprisingly good too, especially considering how much longer Bryan's reach is, but Andre definitely swept the cards for round 1 in my book. So yeah, all on Team Ortega side going into round 2. Of course, round 2 starts, and it does look like Andre has fatigued himself a little bit, maybe expended a bit too much of himself going for that takedown, and despite the fact that he and Bryan did have a wee shouting match after the whole sort of controversy, which it doesn't even deserve to be called because it was clearly a fucking knee. I almost said headbutt myself. It was clearly a knee. They do still touch gloves at the beginning of this round, much like they did at the start of round 1. You'll love to see it. But Andre is actually trying to stick to his striking. I don't know why I keep looking at other things on my table. He's trying to stick to his striking, and it is working for him for the most part. He's got some really good body shots in. He lands a really good couple of punches, but Bryan is keeping him fairly away with some really good like teep kicks to the body especially. He lands some really good hands himself. And I mean, Andre even goes for a takedown at some point, but Bryan manages to defend it. Like, one of the first ones he's defended this entire fight, because he was on his back for a lot of round one, so it was really good to see him actually paying off the training. And eventually it gets to a point where Andre does sort of have Bryan against the cage, and the two are really, really striking quite well. And they get back to the center. Andre goes for a takedown, goes for a single leg, and fucking drives into it, lands the takedown beautifully. It's really, really good work. And they both sort of stand up. Bryan manages to get back up in that position. And Andre sort of like, he makes a mistake where he goes and tries to get another single leg, but Bryan defends it, gets the arms up, sinks in a Darce choke, fucking puts his weight on it and takes Andre down with it, and gets the tap by Darce choke over the wrestler, and gets the win. What? It's safe to say that nobody was really expecting that outcome, especially considering the fact that Bryan was the last pick for Team Volkanovski, and he just beat the first pick of Team Ortega by submission, and the first pick of Team Ortega is supposed to be really good at submissions and wrestling. But holy crap, I'm really glad that Bryan won this fight personally. Like, yeah, we got two Volkanovski guys in the finals now. Maybe we'll have the other two be Ortega guys. I don't really know. That's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, this was a really solidly contested back and forth fight. And obviously, despite the shout that they did have each other, like Bryan did sort of show respect to Andre, and Andre shouted back. So it was really nice to see that there wasn't any hate, despite the whole weird, it wasn't really a headbutt thing. But yeah, really, really cool to see Bryan do that, and really nice to see Bryan, who was the last pick, who was very much the underdog, make it to the finals. So, yeah, we got one half of the middleweight finals now, and we have one half of the bantamweight finals too. So, really cool. Really like how this played out. Bryan played it well, and even though he definitely lost the first round, he managed to come back in the second round, got the choke really, really well, capitalized on the one mistake that Andre made, and got the win. No complaints about this, really solid episode. I am looking forward to the next one as well, which is going to be the Coach's Challenge, and it looks like to be a cornhole throwing thing. You ever play cornhole? Me neither, I'm not American, but that's besides the point. I'm just gonna sort of go into the outro really awkwardly now. And how's that for a cutaway? So, that's the end of this episode. Really, really good so far. Really well edited too. I like how it was put together. Nice to see Forrest back. The whole the tyre change thing was really cool. Lots of really nice moments in the house. Really happy that Bryan got the win. Very much by surprise. I don't think anyone was really expecting him to submit the guy who's really good at submissions in Andre, but that's how it plays out sometimes. Next thing you'll see me for might not be... Actually, I was going to say it might not be until Sunday, but tomorrow I might be able to get an episode of Music of the Week out. I'm not really sure. And then maybe the day after that, there might be a Fight the Night review. I have no clue. If there's not, I'll just push back the Music of the Week review until then, because I can, that's why. So, yeah, and obviously tonight I'll be putting up the last part of the Golden Path tournament. I've been putting up all the other parts over the past few nights, so going to be putting up the last part tonight, as well as doing a random gaming stream on my Twitch. So, yeah, that's basically all the plans I have for now, and I'll see you most likely tonight. Don't really have a lot else to say. Also, I find this episode out. This episode is really good, and as always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye bye.